5 food fraud trends to look out for in 2023. Every week I read, watch and listen to hundreds of articles, posts and journals about food fraud. I've been doing this since 2015. Here are my predictions for 5 food fraud trends we'll see in 2023. 1. Organic fraud in USA, a little less likely. 2. Waste disposal fraud. 3. Document fraud as an area of concern. 4. Sustainability claims fraud. That will be more likely, I think. And 5. Authenticity testing improving. So I'll go ahead and explain each of these 5 points in detail. 1. Organic fraud. Awareness of organic fraud has been increasing rapidly everywhere in the world. In the USA, that increased awareness has been accompanied by growing recognition of problems with the National Organic Program, the NOP. These problems are related to enforcement and coverage. The NOP includes standards that define what can and cannot be labelled as organic, and it requires that products meet certain requirements in order to carry the USDA organic seal. There were a number of multi-year, very high-volume frauds in the organic grain sector in the USA that have been discovered and prosecuted in recent years, including one perpetrated with corn grown in the Midwest, and fraud in imported organic soybeans. With some of those large operations exposed, the amount of fraudulent organic bulk commodities should be reduced in the USA, and the prosecutions may act as a deterrent to other would-be perpetrators. The NOP rules have been strengthened so that they now apply to imported commodities and importing companies like brokers and traders. Or I should say they will soon apply to those criteria. They also require that the organic status of bulk food in non-retail containers is correctly identified with respect to its organic status. There have also been updates related to the qualifications of organic inspectors and the rigour of on-site inspections. Although the new rules are at least 1 year away, the market for organic commodities has been put on notice, and this should reduce the amount of organic food fraud in the USA. Waste disposal fraud. Waste disposal fraud has been probably happening for decades, but we're becoming more aware of the risks. Waste fraud takes many forms, but a typical scenario is one in which a food company contracts a waste company to securely destroy and dispose of goods that do not meet quality or safety parameters so that they can't be diverted back to consumers. However, when fraud occurs, the waste company sells the substandard food or otherwise allows it to return to consumers. In one recent example, damaged jars of food were diverted back to the legitimate marketplace by the company that had promised to destroy them and had issued a disposal certificate to the brand owner. This type of fraud is not new, but awareness of potential fraud in the waste supply chain has increased. At the same time, food companies' supplier approvals programs are more likely to include waste contractors than previously. And that means, hopefully, that there could be less waste disposal fraud than before this year. 3. Food safety document fraud. A bigger worry than we first thought. Document fraud is nothing new. It's a key element in many types of food fraud. Falsified laboratory reports, fake organic certificates, and even fake disposal declarations are all examples of document fraud. In the context of food fraud, document fraud is most likely to support a profitable fraud, such as passing off conventional soybeans as organic so they can be sold for a much higher price. In normal food frauds then, the document fraud is just part of the package, and the documents do not directly make the food vulnerable. There is one class of food, however, that has a special and perhaps easily missed food fraud vulnerability. These are foods that are not usually thought of as high risk for food fraud, but that rely on authentic or true documents that are critical to food safety. An example is ready-to-eat, cold-cooked chicken purchased by a sandwich manufacturer. A faked expiry date or falsified microbiological result on the certificate of analysis would place the sandwich company and its consumers at risk of serious consequences. Because the faked, forged or falsified documents in that scenario could provide subtle economic advantages to the supplier, this type of scenario could be considered food fraud. Such vulnerabilities could easily slip through the net of traditional food fraud assessments. For suppliers whose economic circumstances are getting tougher, the motivation to perpetrate minor document frauds like falsifying microtests could be getting stronger, and that is potentially increasing the likelihood of such frauds occurring. And you can learn about how to incorporate document fraud into your food fraud vulnerability assessments in our monthly supplement for paying subscribers, which will be out next week. 4. Problematic sustainability claims. Claims about the sustainability credentials of foods are on the rise as consumers increasingly value such claims. Unfortunately, many green claims made about consumer goods have the potential to be misleading. A United Kingdom government survey found 40% of such claims were problematic because of either non-accredited, own-brand logos, or non-disclosure of environmentally harmful practices or ingredients, vague language, or lack of evidence to support claims such as eco, sustainable, and natural. Vague claims and own-brand logos do not necessarily constitute food fraud. However, food businesses need to be careful about the integrity of the data they use to support claims, the claims that they are intending to make about their products or operations. Claims about carbon neutrality, carbon net zero, and greenhouse gas emissions reductions need to be evidenced using data from the whole supply chain. And this is where food companies can be vulnerable. If a food company's supplier provides incorrect data related to the carbon footprint of the material or service being purchased, the outcome of any emissions calculations done by the purchasing company will be incorrect. The result? The food company could be guilty of accidentally misrepresenting its sustainability status. Other fraud pitfalls for food companies include fraudulent certification schemes and logos used by their suppliers, and errors in interpreting or complying with the varying green claim regulations in different markets. You can read more about the risks that come with carbon neutral claims in issue 61 and about consumers' confusion with sustainable seafood claims in issue 63. 5. Authenticity testing. More accessible, better expertise. Laboratories continue to improve their authenticity testing services to support medium-sized food businesses with food fraud detection. The level of food fraud knowledge and expertise in the food testing industry is getting better, and more tests are becoming available. The Food Authenticity Network's Centres of Expertise program is making valuable contributions to the expertise and accessibility of food fraud tests. A Food Authenticity Network Centre of Expertise is a laboratory or academic institution with expertise in one or more types of authenticity tests. And by the way, if you're finding any of this interesting, please share it with your friends and colleagues or post it on LinkedIn.